So, welcome to the Path of Least Expectance, a podcast. I am your host, Michaela Batten, and I am so excited today to have the one and only Catherine Yearwood with us. Our cross passed back in 2009. I looked it up. I started working with Catherine at her boutique on Wrightsville Beach, Hallelu. And really some of the best, probably most like transformative years for me. I was in college and it was like a summer job. And I was in school for fashion, and I knew it was something I wanted to be part of my life, but it was so much more than that kind of job. It was so much more than an educational job on fashion. It really was a transformative type of position. So, Catherine is a phenomenal leader, strong businesswoman, ran the successful boutique for 14 years, and then one day decided, I'm going to move to California and sell my business. So, we're going to dive into that later. I will let you explain all of that and more. So really, I think for entrepreneurial reasons, you are such an inspiration. Your story really is just what happens when you're led by faith, you know, when you persevere and you just really allow your heart and your gut to kind of to lead you. You really have shown that. And I'm naming this episode Jump First, Think Later, which I think makes a lot of sense to you and will make a lot of sense to the listeners later. So I'm really excited for you to share your journey, and the way you live life and the way you share life is so exciting, and I'm so excited to jump in. So let's do it. Welcome, Catherine, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. I love, the thought behind this podcast, and I'm just so excited about it.
So exciting. So tell me, what is your path of least expectance? Go back as far as you want. You've got to talk about Grandpa a little bit. I'm going to make you do that. But just kind of tell us quickly where you started and where you are now, and then we're going to go back and connect all of these dots.
Okay. Well, I would say my first kind of bump in the road, we can go all the way back to high school. I grew up traveling with my family on a sailboat, so I did homeschool a lot of my years, but decided my senior year that I was going to go back to public school. Probably not a good idea.
Didn't work out for you.
So I was going, to public school, doing the whole thing, just like, okay, I'm just going to graduate, walk and do all that, but got like a month in, was like, I hate this and I don't want to be here. I was just so used to doing homeschooling, kind of self-managing myself, that I'm like, it felt like high school felt like a circus almost. I was just like, we can get this work done in like 2 hours and be on our way, but I felt like I was there all day just while the teacher was trying to control the class. And so I started skipping school and picking up shifts at work. I was just waitressing and whatnot. And so I just felt like school was kind of a waste of my time, honestly. So I started skipping school and, making some bad decisions. And I don't know if they do this now, I'm sure they don't, but back in the day, you had to have these passes to get back in class. If you'd been absent, it was signed by a teacher and by a parent. So I was skipping a lot of school, so I decided to make my own passes.
Tell me you started selling them. Please tell me you started selling them, because I don't know this, and if this is true, I might die. Were you and my husband selling them? Because you were friends with my husband in high school.
Yes. No, he was not a part of my criminal path, but yes, we did go to high school together. And that was probably the only fun thing I liked about high school. If y'all don't know, Michaela's husband is an amazing artist, and we were in like a math class together, and that's the only thing I remember. I would like draw a doodle on my notebook and then like hand it to him. He sat behind me and he would create this like amazing picture, like fantasy thing. And it was like the most, right. Yeah. And so I didn't learn anything, but I had a whole notebook of cool doodles from your husband. So that was the only good part.
Well, good. I'm glad he could provide that for you.
But anyways, I did start selling the passes, and yes, I did get busted, and I got in a lot of trouble because I was basically, it was considered forging signatures. So I was going to get expelled. So I decided to beat him to the punch and just drop out of school. And the day that I dropped out, I remember thinking, I like got my car and was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? This is like a scarlet letter I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. Like, people are always going to think I'm dumb, that I'm lazy, that I'm a quitter, like everything you think about a high school dropout. And I'm like, right. how did I end up here? This is not who I am, so that was kind of my own personal wake up call of like, wait a minute, what are you doing with your life? Like, this is not who you want to be becoming. So I instantly enrolled in night school to get my GED, and I started working. I was already had a job, but I was working. I got 2 more jobs and decided that I just needed to get myself out of like my bad choices. Like, I decided I needed to move and get away from everything that was comfortable to me.
Restart.
And I just wanted to restart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like, this is not going well, so I got to start over. So that's what I did. So all summer I was working on getting my GED, decided that I wanted to move to California, was working 3 jobs to save money, and moved to San Diego when I was 18. And I just still was in this place of like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I know that I should go to community college. My parents will be happy if I'm like attempting to go to school.
Right.
So I was going to community college and working in a surf shop and just trying to figure out my life. And I think, like you mentioned, those kind of like college years are so transformative. It was like some of the hardest years of my life because I had to refigure out who I was and who I wanted to be. So I really threw myself into trying to rediscover my relationship with the Lord. And I started just going to church like as much as I could. Like, I was in like 4 Bible studies and was volunteering in my church and working and trying to do school, and just really feeling like I don't know where I'm going with all this, but through that, I feel like the Lord really taught me a lot about who I was. And I started to see who he had created me to be, and that I was more than a high school dropout. I kind of felt like that was like my new tagline, I'm a high school dropout, but I really felt like the Lord transformed me through those years. And then I finally decided, I was like, you know what? I love to work, and I think I want to start my own business. I want to like create something within a community and really build like a place where people can come and hang out. And, my husband, I wasn't married at the time, but he calls it coffee shop dreams. Like, every girl has a coffee shop
Everybody
does, right? But and my sister lived with me in California, and her and I decided that we were going to find a way to start a business. Of course, we had no money. She had just graduated college and had a job. And so her and I just were like, okay, let's put together a business plan. Let's figure out what we want to do. How are we going to do it, kind of thing. And so we started going to banks and trying to get loans to do this organic juice bar coffee shop. And of course, got rejected a ton.
Well, when was that? Because organic juice bars weren't a thing then, were they? Like, this was pre-organic juice bars.
Yeah, this is like this would have been like 2000.
Didn't mean to say it like that. Like, that was a long time ago.
That was like
the point being
ancient history. You're so old.
That was wow. You like really went for it. Like, we're not only going to open a business, we're going to do something that's like not readily available. Let's do it.
Oh yeah, and it was like definitely like kind of an unheard of thing. But of course, California, it was like, oh, health and wealth, they're all about it. So we were kind of like.
That being said, a niche market's always a place to start. So, I mean, no direct competition is great.
Yeah, exactly. And we were kind of the first in the area in Encinitas to do that sort of organic focus. Okay, so long story short, no, we didn't have any money. We couldn't figure out how to start something on our own. So one day we were driving by this restaurant, and they had like a kiosk on the outdoor deck, and it was like supposed to be like where they, I don't know, served beer and wine or something, but it was shut down and there was nothing there. So we went to the owner, pretty much said, hey, how about you pay us minimum wage, and we're going to start a business and make you money. And, you're just going to give us your credit card for all the startup costs.
It'll be easy.
and then, we're going to make you back your money. Somehow we convinced them to do this. And so that was our first taste of business. We did everything from creating menus and pricing and figuring out the whole organic world. My sister was much more into it, so she had a lot more knowledge in that realm, but I was kind of more over operations of managing employees and all of that. Which we only had 2. And so it was great. It was and my best friend,
Okay.
or two of my best friends.
But like quickly, just real quick, like that is like, that goes to show, I think so many times we find excuses for things that we really want, but that scare us. And how great that you were just got, you went in and you found opportunity where it was just sitting right in front of you. That speaks volumes,
Yeah, and that was kind of my thinking was like at that point and stage in my life, I was like, nobody's going to see my value or my worth because I'm a high school dropout. And so I have to make my own way. I have to figure this out myself, kind of thing. And thank goodness I had my sister as a partner, because she was great to walk with me through that. Like we did it together. So yeah, it was great that somehow we convinced this amazing guy to let us do this. But yeah, finding our own way. It was really kind of that thing of like, we just got to try. Like he said yes, right. So we can't not do this.
Jump first, think
yeah.
later. Example one.
So yeah, so I was doing that, but again, I was just minimum wage. So I was still working at the surf shop. And through doing the juice bar, I learned so much, definitely about managing employees, and how to motivate people, and dealing with customers and trying to make a name for yourself in a community, especially when it was something that wasn't kind of being done. It was funny because I remember this rep coming to us and he was like, hey, I have this brand new product. It's called acai and it's going to be rage. And I remember my sister was like all into it. And I was like, oh, some fruit from the Amazon. I was like, totally
can't pronounce it.
I was like, no, we're not doing
it.
Yeah.
Oh, so you didn't?
Like, no, we did. And she was right. Okay. And it was like incredible. Yeah, it totally took off, of course. But anyways, that was a funny little thing. So I was working at the surf shop. While I was there, they offered me a promotion as a buyer. And I really didn't even see it coming because I had never even really considered, that realm of like a higher position within retail or fashion. But it was such a great surf shop. They had in California, the surf shops are like malls in themselves. They had two locations and they just had a ton going on. So it was this incredible opportunity. So I took it and it was a full-time position and while still running this other business with my sister. So it was incredible hard time of my life, because I got thrown into this whole realm of buying. I was a associate buyer for accessories, and 2 weeks into me like training, they fired the head buyer and made me the head buyer. And I mean, I was like 20 at this point, and I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know like open to buys, how to balance a budget. Like they were just like figured out, so I would go home almost every night and cry because I was so overwhelmed and did not know what I was doing. But that was the greatest experience that I could have ever had. It definitely made me realize that is what I wanted to do with my life. I fell in love with it. I loved buying. I loved retail. I loved watching customers get excited about something that I had bought for their store. So it really opened my eyes to like, okay, this is what I want to do.
And we all know that most of our growth comes from those really uncomfortable spots. So it's usually when you're stuck in them, you're like, if you can just see past it and say, okay, something's growing inside of me, something's moving, this is going to be good, right?
Yeah. And that's what I feel like is like the theme of my life is always like wanting to quit, like getting to a place and it's like, this is too hard, I want to quit. And then like pushing through, and then on the other side being like, oh my gosh, I had no clue that this was what was waiting for me on the other side of that. Like, I'm so ready to quit. So I met my husband during this time. He was a pro surfer and he was surfing for the surf shop. So we met through the surf shop. We got married. That was a whole nother story, but he ended up working for this organization called Walking on Water, and they produce surf videos and travel around the world and premiere them. And they had just produced one on an East Coast surfer, and they were basically like, Dave, since Catherine has connections there, we would love for you to head up the East Coast headquarters and kind of set up this tour. And for me, that was really difficult because I was like, oh my gosh, I just figured out what I want to do with my life.
I'm killing it.
Like
I am killing it right
now.
Yeah,
it's like this. No, I figured this out. This is what I want to do. I'm not going to leave. And so that was really hard because I was just starting to like get confidence in like who I was and like where I was going with my life. And then it was like, okay, let's go back to square one, where you left everything because you felt like such a failure. Let's go back home to that. So I was, needless to say, not ready to leave California. I was really nervous going back home, back east. And really just, I had no plan. We were supposed to only be there for a year. And so it was just kind of like, okay, just go and support your husband and, we'll just figure it out as we go. So we uproot, moved to the East Coast, moved back home. We're living in my parents' house. And at the time, my parents were mainly living in Florida. So it wasn't the worst situation. They had a beach house and we were living there for free basically. But it was really difficult. It was really hard going back and then feeling like there was nothing for me there. I had no purpose. And Dave, my husband, was traveling 180 days out of the year.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I was just basically, yeah, he was gone. He was setting up the tour. He was, all up and down the East Coast. He was gone all the time. So it really just felt like all of a sudden I moved back home to my parents' house and I have nothing to do and I have no goal for my life.
Did you quit your job and sell the business, or did you just hand the business over, or what did you leave behind?
Yes.
Or did you say, hey, I'm coming back?
Yes. So we turned the business over to a friend of ours that had been working with us almost from day one, and she kind of took it over. We handed that over and quit my surf shop job.
Wow.
Yeah. And I kind of left that like, I hope I'm coming back. Please take me back if I'm back,
Right.
So that was kind of how we left it, and really thinking that we would be moving back to California in a year. But in that time, I just really started to, a lot of my friends had moved away, and my family was all living in Florida at the time. And so I really just felt so alone. And I felt like there was no opportunity. So I got a job at Sweetwater. They were so kind to take me in. They were like family. And so I was just back to being like a retail girl, but I just felt like, again, I just went through such growth of being like, God teaching me like the value of it's okay to not have it all figured out or to have a title, that, there's going to be times in life where you're just going to be back at square one, and that's okay.
Right.
So I really just started praying. I was like, okay, God, I feel like you have purpose for my life. And I really wanted to develop something within our community. I was back in Wrightsville Beach, and I have such long family history there. And so I had such a heart for the place. And I really just wanted to create some type of group for women to encourage them and just to almost develop, relationships again, friendships. And so I started a Bible study, and some girls from the surf shop would come. And so I just started praying all through that year of like, okay, Lord, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to do? And then I had this idea for a boutique. And again, it was like a crazy thought because we were raising money to live. It was a foundation. So we were raising money. It wasn't like we had an income coming in. And it just seemed like such an unachievable idea to start a business without anything.
So let's do it.
Yeah.
When has it ever stopped us, right? It can't stop
you. When it's really hard, go do that. So yeah, I just started writing a business plan. This is back in the days before you could Google anything. I mean, you had to go to the library. You had to know the Dewey Decimal System. I don't even know if a lot of people even know what that is, but you had to look up books, check them out. I was like, how to start a business, And
I was just having this conversation on a podcast the other day saying, we are so lucky. Like, for example, me trying to figure out this podcast because I'm new to it. I literally just can Google anything. I mean, I can Google how to change audio from one file to another. I can Google how to do something with my video. I don't know how to do any of this. It's all online. Yeah, at libraries, that would have been too much. I would have called it quits, I think.
I know. That would have taken months in the library, You're like checking out all different kinds of books, but now we can figure it out in like a matter of hours. It really is amazing. I mean, that's a short period of time when you really think about it, but
Right.
yeah. So it was like really old school of like pen and paper, writing out my dreams, my thoughts, like how to, get a loan, how to, all the things, just trying to figure it out.
Right.
So I spent kind of a year just like working on this dream and trying to just be like, all right, Lord, if this is not of you, then like take it away, because this is actually too scary for me. I'm so afraid of like starting out, my husband and I, like in debt. Like that was the biggest nightmare for me. So I was like, oh my gosh, if this fails, like I don't want to start our marriage that way, sort of thing. So I really was like, Lord, just take this dream away. I'm going to keep pushing
Right.
forward, but I'm terrified. And so Dave was traveling. He was just like, what are you doing? You're sure. It's just
Okay.
kind of like,
Yeah.
Dave, yeah, that's cute. Just whatever keeps you busy, that's fine.
Right.
And so I just kept chugging forward and pushing and pushing, and just so many times was like, this is such a waste of time. Why am I doing this? Like, I'm writing this whole business plan and I'm never going to do this. But thankfully I have great family. That my parents were entrepreneurs. My grandfather had his own business. My great grandmother started one of the first hotels on Racer Beach. And so I had family that were like, no, you can do it. And it was like, I had seen that example all throughout my life, kind of like just getting started, like
Right.
putting the hard work in and just like day by day, just building something. So my parents were great advisors. They were kind of like, yeah, just keep, this is what you should do. Keep pushing forward. And so I was sitting with my grandfather one day, and he had always said that I should open an ice cream shop. And I'm like, that's been done.
Don't love him, but that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. But he was just, we were sitting on the porch and just talking about old days, kind of thing. And then I had gone on a bike ride around the beach, and I went past the old building that had been a laundromat for as long as I can remember. And then I saw a for rent sign in the window, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. So I just was curious about rent prices. So I called the number, and the landlord was like, yeah, come meet me there tomorrow and I'll show you the space, and we can talk about the rent. And, this was me just kind of being like, I'm just doing my, research, and,
You go into
just
it
trying to figure things
confident,
out.
and you call people and you say, yes, I'd like to come meet you. I have a business plan. If you'd like to see it, I won't bring it tomorrow because this is just a first meeting, but yes. And you just act confident, and you make people believe what you want to believe. You have to do that. You have to advocate for yourself half the time,
Yeah, you do. And you really just have to, have that guts to be able to be like, I can do this. Meanwhile, I had already been going to banks trying to get a loan, got rejected a ton. So that was also in the back of my mind with the rejection. So I meet the landlord the next day. I mean, this is a gutted building. There's not even air conditioning in it. I mean, there's like old, like washer and dryers, like all in the center. And I walk in.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt again.
Yeah.
When you were riding by, I've always wanted to ask you this. So your grandfather had a laundromat business on the beach back in the day, right? Did you ever think of the connection and think, this is going to work because of that? Because, you were looking at this laundromat that was not your grandfather's, but that was how your grandfather started business. Was there like ever that connection of like, this is going to happen just simply because of the fact that the connection that's happening right now?
I don't honestly think I ever thought about it, but I did have, that was, my grandfather was a great inspiration, because when he was 14, he would go around, like all the tourists would come over on the trolley, and he would meet them at the trolley and say, hey, I'll come by your house, at 6 p.m. or whatever, and pick up your dirty clothes and I'll wash them for you. And so he was 14 and started his first business. So that was a huge inspiration to me, because I was like, oh, that took him to where he was, like, that's where he got his first experience of being a business owner. So I was like, okay, it can start so small like that.
Right.
So that is one of my inspirations, but I never even put together the laundry.
It's just so connection. Serendipitous, I mean, it's just crazy. Okay, so I'm sorry. You go and you meet your landlord. You have no money. You've been rejected every which way. And here we go. Yes. Hey, it's nice to meet you. Catherine Yearwood. I want to open a business.
Yes. So I walk in, landlord's super nice. And this place is just, it's just a cement block, really. it's a really old building, and I just had so much vision. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is happening. This is like, and I really believe that was kind of like the Holy Spirit, like, you're doing this, like, kind of like wake up call, like, no, you're doing this. And I was even like, oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. So the landlord's like, yeah, what do you think? And kind of threw out the price. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll bring you a deposit tomorrow. And like, these words are like coming out of my mouth. And I'm like, I don't have that money in my bank. Like, what am I saying? And so I kind of leave, and I am like overwhelmed with the fact that I'm just like, lying to this guy pretty much. So I go back to my house, and I'm talking to my grandmother and telling her like this whole story. And I'm just like, I know this is it. Like, this is happening, but I told the guy I'm going to bring a deposit tomorrow. Like, what do I do? And my grandparents were very tight with money, so I never even saw this coming. But she said, let's go to the bank. And I was like, what? And she was like, I'll let you borrow money. Basically, I'll buy a CD at the bank, and they'll give you a loan against the money that I'm putting in. And so it was $15,000, which nowadays is like
Woo!
nothing.
But probably wasn't that much then either, right?
No, it wasn't.
No,
it was, yeah. It was nothing, but to me, it was the world. I was like, here we go. We got something. I don't care. If there's no air conditioning in the building, I'll just like, put clothes on, whatever.
There's a way. Let's do this.
So that was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is totally happening. And so from there, it was just kind of a whirlwind of like incredible things coming together. It was just it definitely took longer than I thought. And I have no idea how we made the money work. And the timing was crazy because we were living in my parents' house. My parents ended up selling their house. And so then we had to find a place to live. In the same time, my husband tore his ACL, had to get... Oh, it's laughable because it was so hard.
I'm laughing with you.
Yes. My husband tears his ACL, has to get surgery. So expensive, physical therapy. He can't walk. I had just opened the business, and I'm sitting here going like, what is going on? Like, my husband can't walk. I have to drive him physical therapy. I don't know how I'm going to do all this, And so it was really tough starting out. The boutique, we had instant success almost, just because it was the timing of affordable fashion was just so new, and we were in a college town and a tourist town. It was just the right time and the right place. And so we just instantly had this great success, and kind of, I was a little overwhelmed by it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like going really well.
Right.
So it was just so much going on. I don't even know how we made it through all of it, because, Dave he was then at his point, figuring out, well, what am I going to do now with my life? Because, they've done the tour, and this was when we were kind of supposed to be going back to California, but he had tore his ACL, and now he's like laid out in the bed. So it was just like a really hard growth time as well. And I'm trying to figure out how to navigate and run a business was really, challenging in every way. So
I think what's so genius though about you really, and the way you think, is you never ever say, or at least from what I know, and I'm sure you say it on your your inner dialogue, but rarely do you ever say, I can't do this. It's like, how am I going to do this? You never tell yourself, I can't do it. You just say, how am I going to do it? For example, like with the juice bar, you're like, I can't get a building. I can't afford rent. So how am I going to do this? You found the kiosk, right? You just opened your eyes and sought out an opportunity. And then with I've always thought this is so genius. What you did with Hallelu, the boutique, the business you're talking about, it started out as a lot of consignment, which was like double edged, because people are coming in, you are not having to put any money up front, so you're making money and then you're spending money rather than spending money to make money, which is normally the theory, right? And right. I can tell you firsthand experience, because I was in high school. I remember when this business opened, and I remember sitting in biology, AP biology, and a bunch of the girls had the little flyer, and it was like a girl with a heart balloon, and I remember being like, that is so cool. Like, I'm going to go there. Like, I think I was like a junior or something, you know? But I remember going in and you become part of it because you bring your clothes and then you go in there and like your shirt's on there and you're like, that's my shirt. And it just, and you had new things as well, but it was so genius because you said, okay, now I can't do this. How am I going to do this? I'm going to have other people bring me their clothes. I'm going to resell them. It's a win-win for everyone. And then when I make enough money, I can start buying more and more new. And eventually you didn't even have to do consignment anymore because you just were able to do all new. And I just think it goes to show that there's always a way to do it if you put the effort in. And if you believe and you lead by faith so much, you know, and you live in faith so much. And I think that that's just, it's just so beautiful for people to understand that and to see it and to see it happen for you. And I just think that there's so much to be said about that.
Yeah, I think it is true. When you look back, you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, it was that thing of, it definitely was not my dream and vision in the beginning kind of thing. Like I had such a pretty picture of what it would be like. And it was like, okay, well, we just got to start making some money because I'm paying rent, you know? So it was one of those things where now it's, you know, considered like a failure to launch. A lot of people are just get to this place and it's not good enough or it's not where you want it to be. And you just never end up doing it, you know, because it's too hard, you want to quit, whatever. And before we opened, I was definitely in this place of like, oh my gosh, this feels so janky. I literally was like just pulling furniture from my grandparents' storage, and like, you know, it felt so janky to me that I was like, this is kind of embarrassing, but we gotta go. So it was that thing of like, yeah, you just gotta get started. Like just, you know, it might not be the perfect pretty picture, but it's like you got to work up towards that. You can't start out big, great, and grand, you know, all the time.
Right.
You have to work up to things.
Because, and I'll tell you too from personal experience. So I had, for anyone who doesn't know, I have had a shoe store, which was greatly inspired by the work that Catherine did. But I had double what you had. I had $30,000 to open the shoe store, which was crazy because the amount of money it takes to hold shoe inventory is ridiculous. But again, I felt so janky. As you said, I felt so underwhelmed. And so I'm going in and I'm overwhelmed, but I feel like the experience people were getting was so underwhelming, you know? But at the same time, it was what it was. I was not going to give up on it. And you know what? People don't care because people come in and they have the feeling of what your store feels like and the experience. And they are greeted with not the vibe, but the experience that you brought to Hallelu, you know, and they don't care about that. They're not looking at that bureau because they're looking at the cute clothes and the person helping you, and you brought that sense of love. And it's more about that. And I'm not even trying to, you know, to be like, oh, it's all about love and happiness, but it is. It's, you know, I mean, the experience you set for people really does make a difference.
And I think, yeah, and same thing with you. And I tell people now is like, you are the core of your business. Like you are the reflection of what people experience, you know, like however you're projecting is what people are going to experience, you know? So it's so true. It's like you and I were both so excited about our businesses that, you know, that showed through and it made other people excited and it made other people love what we were doing. And so I think that's a huge thing, is like remembering like it does come from you, whatever you're projecting, and like who you are as a person will show through in your business. And that can come through with your values and your, you know, it comes through with your employees and how you manage and, everything. So it's so true. It's like, you know, we might feel something about how insecure we are about, you know, our business, but in reality, it's like, but your dream, your vision is showing through and people want to experience that. And so you're right. It is more about like who you are and feeling you through the business. I think it's like living that dream with somebody is really incredible.
So yeah. Should we stop and pause your path here and talk about Hallelu a little bit before we get to what happened after you decided you wanted to move across country and sell it? Should we stop? Because there's a couple of things I want to talk about as far as you as just, so going back to what you said, you know, you and Dave, he's laid up on the couch, you're looking for an apartment, you have no money, you're pouring all of it into your business, the little bit that you do have. And I remember you saying something. You would tell us these stories about how you would like eat eggs for a week and you would just get so creative. But I remember you telling me this story, and this just going to talk about how amazing you are as a leader, and how empowering you are, and how much you pour into not only your employees but everyone around you. But you would tell us these stories, but it would be so joyful. It wasn't, I mean, you were past it, so of course, you know, it probably was a lot more joyful than it was in the moment, but you're like, yeah, we had 12 eggs, and then we'd figure out what we could do with them, and like, you know, we'd get maybe like a can of beans, and then that was cool, like that was exciting. But just sacrifices that you would make, I took those with me, and there was times that, you know, maybe it wasn't just a carton of eggs, but like, you know, I had a little bit more, but I was thinking, okay, you know what, this is what it takes to become a greater version of yourself, and you've got to just live through it, and you've got to be okay with it, and you've got to make light of it, because, you know, it's never going to be that easy. And if it is, you're probably not doing the right thing. If life is that easy for you, you're not in the right path. You can't be. Right. I'm sorry, you can't be.
Yeah, you need to be pushing yourself more.
It can be enjoyable. It can be very enjoyable, but it's not going to be easy.
Right, exactly. And yeah, that period of time, because we opened in 2005, and then there was a recession in 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. So things got really hard. It was like boom out the gate. Things are incredible for like 3 years, and then it got really hard. And I think, you know, knowing that no matter what, there will be ebbs and flows in business or in life. You know, there's going to be hurricanes, literal hurricanes that, you know, shook things up for our business as well. You know, of course there's going to be recessions, but knowing that it's a season, like always like looking at where, especially in your dark places, the hard places, and saying like, this is a season. We are going to get through this, and being able to laugh at yourself and laugh through the situation. I think that is definitely one of the things that I learned in those early on hard days, was like, you know what, all we can do is laugh right now, because we really don't know if we're going to be able to, you know, pay our rent at the end of the month or buy another carton of eggs. We don't know. Right. So in uncertainty, really just being able to laugh through it and know that you're in a season. You will get through it, you know. So I think it's all about like just pushing through and figuring out what it is that you need to do just to get through. And there will be a sweeter season on the other side.
Well, and God always meets you where you are. You know what I mean? Whether it's in, you know, hardship or friendship or relationships, whatever it is, you know, with him, with anyone, I think that God will always come when needed. And you have to have that faith too, that, okay, things are really hard. Maybe I need to give this one up. Like you said with, what were you talking about when you said, when you were opening Hallelu and you said, I really don't think this is right. Please take it away. And he didn't. So you knew it was right. But I mean, I think there are times where you just have to step back and say, okay, I need some help here, you know, and see if it's right. And, you know, whether it's, you know, in prayer, or whether it's, you know, your husband or your wife or your family. I mean, having a support system really is, you know, huge. Key. Yeah. Key.
Yeah, absolutely.
And mentors are great too. I highly recommend those.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we go into the season where we start hiring employees, and I had hired you. Were away at school, at fashion school at the time, and I had hired, you know, Maddie and Hannah,
all my girlfriends,
all your friends. And it was one of those seasons we had gotten through that hardship, and then all of a sudden, like, this whole new season of having employees was so much fun, and being able to, you know, I didn't even know what I was doing, but teaching and guiding them, and just feeling like, hey, we're just doing all this together kind of thing. But anyways, I know it was summertime and you had applied for a job, and Maddie was like, yeah, she's incredible. But I remember being so intimidated because you were in fashion school, and I'm like, she's gonna know way more than me. Like, this is gonna be very embarrassing. And that's what I felt.
I was in the middle of my Versace internship at the time, but I couldn't tell you that because they actually fired me from my internship because the lady was so terrible and I would not do what she wanted me to do, which is a story for a whole nother time. So I basically got fired from an internship the last week I was there. So I had this really cool resume builder, and I remember I couldn't tell you because I was like, she's going to ask why I got fired, and I don't know her that well, and she might not believe me. So, like, I'm just going to, like, I can't tell her that.
Oh my gosh. I remember, like, oh gosh, I really want to her because she knows so much and she can really help us, but she's gonna make me feel like so dumb.
We made it through. We made it through together.
We did. Yeah. So that was such a beautiful season of like having all you guys there and just like this, like create, like we just had this beautiful sweet time of like, you know, being in this environment and like kind of just like living through life together. It was just like such an incredible fun experience.
It really was. We were so lucky for that. I mean, I feel like just all of us, we all learned and grew together, and not only in, the workplace, but just in life. And I think finding that, no matter what part of life you're in, because it's going to ebb and flow, like you said. I mean, not that I don't, that time wasn't going to last forever. It's just, that's not how the way of the world works. But to have moments like that and to hold on to them when you can are so important, because they really grow you as a person. So finding your people where you're at in life and knowing that it's going to probably come and go, and those people won't ever leave your life, but finding those connections and those supports, like we were just talking about a second ago, is really so key. And I think we're so isolated today's day and age, one, because of pandemic, but two, just because everyone's so busy. Things have become so busy in the world, and we forget to just slow down and connect on personal levels. It's not anything we're intending to do, but I do feel that happening a lot. I mean, even personally.
Yeah, definitely. And being present, even, I think, in like those sweet seasons where we were all having like such a good time, and being present in the moment and being like, oh, God has me here for a reason, and trying to soak up everything you can from wherever you are, whatever season you're in and the people you're with. And yeah, I think that whole like being present is lost in a way, because we're always like planning for the future, or looking back to the past. And so it's so hard to just be present and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much for me to learn today, and I need to like focus on whatever like my plate has on it right now.
Right. So okay, so we go through this amazing season of Hallelu. I ended up going and opening a shoe store. You continued it for years. It was just phenomenal. I mean, the growth that you brought to Hallelu and that business. I mean, we had some of the things that I watched you achieve were really groundbreaking in that small business. I mean, remember that bee necklace we had?
Oh my gosh.
So there was a bee necklace featured was it in a magazine?
Yes. Yeah. Well, even before that, there was like this whole crazy season. We had gotten on this Good Morning America segment of the show, and it was like, back then boutiques didn't all have websites. Like, it was kind of like a new thing for a small boutique to have a website kind of thing. And so we were really excited to be featured on Good Morning America, but it ended up crashing our website, crashing the server, because we got so much response from it. And then from that, other things started to happen, and we started getting more mentions in magazines. So I think it was this bee necklace that was like in Southern Living is what it was. Mm-hmm. And so
I have nightmares about this bee necklace. Nightmares to this day.
Oh my gosh, you guys. So we got such a huge response from this, and Michaela was in charge. She was our manager. And so she handled like all the shipping and all the conversations between the online orders and the customers. And so this overwhelming response turned into such a nightmare. And poor Michaela was like in the center of all of it, handling all of it.
It's because, one, it was like in a Southern Living, right? Is that we just said that, right? It was Southern Living. So it wasn't our normal customer. And it was this gold. Now, for people at home who are not watching and they're just listening, it was like a big size compass, and it opened up and it had a bee on the front of it. But it was not the best quality, which none of, it was like, it's like the fun, fast fashion necklaces, like, but so we would order as many as we could order. We'd say, can you send us 200? I mean, we were selling thousands of this necklace. Like, when I tell you we sold a lot, like, it was a lot. And they would come in and like 4 of them would not be broken. Like, would not be broken out of the 200. So then we would like have to, but this is the point of me talking about this story, because no one else, this is funny for us and no one else listening. But listen, this is the point. There were so many trials that you let us, along with you, work through, and it was such a team effort. And I think as a leader, you were so great at allowing us to help as much as we could. And you never said, whoa, you're doing too much. Whoa, you don't need to do that. You'd say, okay, sure, let me, help me as much as you can. I'd love your help, And with this necklace in particular, I remember, there was so much within the shipping and, the online correspondence and all of that we learned. I remember when we were first putting clothing online, tackling challenges of taking a step back and saying, okay, how can we make this different and make it work? And that was a constant challenge that I've taken with me through life, is how can I step back from the situation that's not working and make it work? And I remember there'd be clothing that wouldn't sell. It'd be like a really cute scarf and it wouldn't sell. So we'd say, okay, let's photograph it different. let's like totally take it away and then repost it with a new name, and it would sell. And we were like, see, I knew. We just had to take a step back, relook at the situation, and figure out how it would work, you know, whether it's a bee necklace that's not working, or, you know, or that's broken, or, you know, or whether it's the scarf that didn't want to sell. You know, I really think it was beautiful the way that you lead in that sense that you let others help you. And I think so many leaders don't let others help because they think they can do it better. And you never had that mentality. And that's really such an amazing feature or asset, whatever it is.
And I think, it was like, I loved, you guys were also creative, and I loved like watching you guys come up with all these ideas. And so I would kind of just like push things and just be like, I don't figure it out, you know, because I loved watching you guys come up with, you know, all these like ideas and like events and like, hey, we should do this. And I'm like, sure, okay, go with it, you know? And so, I mean, I was the one that was benefiting because you guys were all so motivated too. Y'all were like, oh my gosh, what about this? What can we do? And like, I felt like you guys were so invested in our business. And I so many times was like, I don't know why they like care so much or they give so much, you know? So
because you were so invested in us, you know, it's a mutual respect, but it's, you say it and it's so easy for you to say, but for so many leaders, and even like not consciously, I mean, you know, it's hard sometimes when it's your business and your baby and you're like, well, I can do it right. It's my business. I know what I want. I can do it easier. Just give me that. I'll do it myself. You know, it really is hard for that to be done a lot of times. So, so I applaud you with that for sure.
Thanks. I feel like I was the one that was benefiting though. You guys were just so good.
You went on to like, you know, it was phenomenal, right? So how many years? 14 years in.
Yes.
So we fast forward to 14 years in, right? So what happens? What happens?
Okay. So 14 years in, and through the time, like I had continued to have like all these dreams and ways to kind of like grow the business, or, you know, I loved what I was doing, and I did want to find different ways to grow it. And I really still had a heart for California as well. So we had even come up with this whole idea of, you know, opening another store out here. We wrote a business plan, you know, went down that path, and just realized that was not going to work, you know? So it was like, I had done several things to continue to try to think about like, oh, I want to grow the business, and then go and like, well, no, that's not right. Or, you know, I just don't see that happening for our life, or, you know, certain things like that. So it always had dreams of kind of continuing to branch out in different ways. And in November of 2019, my husband had come out here and was asked to be in a movie. And so he did this movie part, and it was really cool. It was a great experience for him, and had interest, as some producers had asked if he would be interested in going down the path of doing a travel show. And at the time, you know, our whole life was in North Carolina. So we kind of like, that was cool, but no, that's, you know, our life is not in LA or California. So it was kind of a shelved situation. And then through that time, I had started to get some interest even from brands out here that we were buying for the store, had started to ask me if I would be willing to produce photo shoots for them, and help kind of like with their creative direction in little ways. And so I had started Catherine Yearwood styling. And so that was basically, I would help people do photo shoots. And so that kind of started this whole snowball thing. I had, you know, different businesses from all over Wilmington, and some other clothing brands. And so that kind of like opened my eyes to like, oh my gosh, like I do really love this whole creative element of styling and also helping other businesses. It was kind of like something that just kind of started to happen. So that really opened my eyes to like, oh, this is great. And this is a whole nother realm, a whole nother business, you know? So I kind of just like fell into that whole like styling and somewhat consulting for other businesses. And one day, it was the weirdest thing. I don't know where the thought came from. I mean, Dave and I had, you know, always talked about different things like, oh, one day we'll move to California, or we'll do this, or we'll travel, and you know how you dream about things. I don't know what it was. I went to Dave and I was like, what if we sell the business? I don't know where, like, I never saw myself selling the boutique. Like it was just, I thought I would die doing that because I really loved it. But I don't know where it was. I guess it was just all these opportunities that had started to come about. And it really wasn't a thought out process. I just, had kind of said it to Dave to see like what he would say, like, oh, you're crazy or whatever. So this was, maybe like, I think this was November of 2019. And I came to Dave and I was like, what if we sold the business? He was like, let's do it. And I was like, wait, what? And I don't know. It was just wild. I can't even explain like how things changed in my heart. And it was definitely the Lord calling us on to new things. It was like this slow progression of these new opportunities and new visions. And then just being like kind of hit with this thought of like, oh my gosh, Dave and I are so on the same page. And whenever this happens, this is from the Lord. Like the fact that neither one of us had this, like, the more we talked about it, it was just like, yeah, this just feels right. Like, I don't know why I was like so motivated and excited about it. But I think it was just a time in my life where I was so ready to be challenged, and like you had said earlier, I feel like I had just done so much and I wasn't kind of like being challenged in that way. Things were smooth. It was like a well-oiled machine, and things were great, but I just was feeling that need for challenge and to do new things. And Dave was too. And so that's kind of where that spark came from. And we were like, well, we were just talking about it and we're like, well, let's look and see like what that would look like, what would happen. Like, we have no idea like how to sell a business and like what it would be worth, all those things. So we go and we talk to a broker and she's kind of like, this is how it goes, da da da. And she was like, I put it up on this website. It's super like non, what's the word? It's like, people don't know what business it is. They just put in entries, like if they're interested in buying this business based on the fact that, like our description was like a coastal boutique in North Carolina. It was like so vague. And so it was just kind of like, we put this up and then you'll get responses and you can kind of see what type of people are interested. So we were like just doing this as an exercise, kind of like, oh yeah, we'll do this and see kind of what happens. So she put it up like on a Friday. We got like 4 interest over the weekend. And then she was like, and these are all the people you can look and see who the people are. And so there was this one husband and wife that really kind of, I was like, oh, they seem really cool. And so I was like, yeah, you can give them more information about the business. And so that was on Monday and they said, we want to meet you on Tuesday. So we met with them on Tuesday and we just clicked. They already had like an insurance business and they really kind of ran it the same way that we ran Hallelu, as far as like really believed in investing in not only their employees, but also in their customers, and really just had that same kind of mission driven vision. So we clicked with them. We just talked to them for 2 hours. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, y'all are really great people. It was great to get to know you. Kind of walking away like, we don't know where this will go.
Right. Who knows?
2 days later, they put in a cash offer, 30-day closing. Like, things happened so fast that it was just like, oh my gosh, wait, we were just researching and now like we have an offer on the table. And so it all happened really fast. So this was, well, let's see, I guess we started to kind of just think about it like around November, or maybe it was December. Anyways, so this was maybe February that this was all happening. And so we ended up just, Dave and I were like, we really think this is just, I don't know why, we have no plan. We really didn't even know if we would move to California. We just really didn't know. And in the meantime, we had also put our house up for sale because we thought we wanted to move back to Rachel Beach. So we get an offer on our house, and all this happens in a matter of a month. And this is February of 2020. So like,
here comes pandemic,
COVID,
right?
Is
here it comes.
It is starting to happen. But it was not even a thing by the time we were already in negotiations. So we had sold our house. We were in the middle of like moving out. We were like getting to know this couple that was buying the business, and we were training them and this whole thing. And then people started talking about COVID. We still don't know what it is. Anyways, we closed March 2020, and I think we closed the deal on a Friday, and then they had to close like the following Monday, the business, just, quarantine. And so the timing was wild. We couldn't have seen all of that coming. And it was just one of those things where it was a confirmation in a way. We felt terrible the way it happened for the owners, and the business is fine now. They
Thriving,
totally are great,
still
by the way. Yeah, doing great. So it was just a really hard season, of course, to buy a business and to take it over. So we felt terrible about how that went down, but it was just such a confirmation for Dave and I, because we were suddenly in the season where we had just sold our house. We had nowhere to live. We had money in the bank, but we were quarantining. And so we ended up, my parents have a house like right down from the house that we sold, just like a block. So, and they use it
back
as an
with
Airbnb.
Mom and Dad. Here we go.
Yes, here we go. Full circle, always.
Full circle, connect the dots.
It was wild though, because it was a house they used for Airbnb. So it was rented out for renters. Of course, they canceled, quarantine. Dave and I go in quarantine at their house for 7 weeks, I say. And it was just such a great, incredible timing to be able to reflect, because like all of it happened so quick that it was like, thank goodness we had this like slow period to just like reflect, enjoy, and celebrate, everything that had happened for that, 14 and a half years. So the timing was amazing. And I really feel like it was good to have like this closure almost, because, and I knew that I would kind of like go through some sort of identity crisis, when you are pouring yourself into something for so long, and then all of a sudden,
so suddenly,
just
so
done
suddenly.
with it. Yeah.
Right.
It's really one of those things where you have so much time to reflect. And it was definitely one of those, like, going back to like, okay, who am I, and what do I want for my life? And like the same thing for my husband, like we were doing it together, kind of like, okay, well, what's our future look like? We really just didn't even have a plan. Would you say think later, jump first, think later?
Mm-hmm,
so
jump
that's
first,
definitely
later. Yes, once again.
That's what happened. We really didn't have a plan. It was just like, yeah, it definitely feels like God's calling us to something new. So,
well, and I think too, something you told me one time, which you probably don't even remember this, but I don't remember what it was about, but something was happening and everything just started happening like in a flow for me. And I remember having a conversation with you in Hallelu. I wish I remembered what it was about, but basically I was just saying, I kept thinking it was a coincidence. And all of a sudden I thought, wow, this is just God setting life up for me in the right way, because I'm trusting and following and, just living this life. And you were like, well, at some point it stops becoming a coincidence and it just starts really becoming God, and it's so true. It's like, at some point you're like, what a coincidence that we sold our house at the same time that we sold our business, and what a coincidence that pandemic happened and we're able to sit at home. But at some point you have to just believe that it's just not a coincidence. It's really just God, or, whatever, just working for you. And all you have to do is kind of give in and be okay with that. And, just be okay in those moments.
Absolutely. You're so right about that. I mean, there's just no way all that could just coincidentally happen. It was wild. And also, yeah, that goes into also having like that trust and faith, and knowing that, like, okay, this is also scary because we don't have a plan and we don't even know what the rest of the world's going to look like, but having that faith of like, okay, but this did all happen for a reason, and God has ordered our steps, and he brought us this far, and he's not going to leave us, sort of thing. So right. I think that really is about faith and trust, and those kind of quiet moments in life, you're like, okay, now what, is like really where you have to lean in and have that faith and trust.
So you make it to California and you start thriving in your new consulting business, right?
Yes. So again, that was kind of like through the pandemic, I started to have boutiques reach out, which I had never really done any consulting with boutiques. It was more brands that I had been working with the boutique and whatnot. So boutiques started to reach out, and it was a time where they were like, well, what do we do? Because we're shut down, and so they really wanted some guidance and help with, online stores and different ways to market. so I really just walked through a handful of boutiques that had reached out randomly, and was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And we started to see progression with their businesses, and they started to grow. And then even through the pandemic grew so much that they had to move into bigger spaces. And that kind of blew my mind, and also was so gratifying in a way, to where is like, getting a text at like 6 p.m. and be like, you've changed our family's life, and that's like a big, I'm like, I'm just walking through this with you. I'm just here to support you kind of thing. But, just being able to offer whatever experience that you've gone through to help somebody else is, so gratifying. So now for the past 2 years, that's kind of what I've really dove into. Dave and I both, we've had some opportunities to kind of help some brands and creative development, and he's really helped a lot with that. And then I've really focused a lot on boutiques, and it's just been so incredible. I mean, it's one of those things that I didn't see coming, and I couldn't have organized it or planned it out any better. It's definitely one of those things that was like, okay, God, organize those steps,
Right.
So that's been such a beautiful thing. But again, I can't say it's all been easy. There's definitely been the moments where I'm like, celebrating with these stores, but then also having those moments where you miss owning a store. I'm sure you've had it as well. Is like,
Oh yeah.
there's a lot you don't miss, but there is a lot, of
Yeah.
moments you do. So you've experienced that as well. And so going through those moments and just being like, okay, but there are times in life where you have to let go of something great for something greater or bigger, or whatever it is that God's calling you to with the next step. So it's been a growth season for sure. These past 2 years, it's been, great, and also difficult, and beautiful, and sweet, and hard, all in one.
Well, and I really don't know who made that rule up that we all follow, because we do all follow it, where it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We set on our path. There's twisty, turny roads, and we're good with that. But then once we start going, that's our thing. Like, we can't recreate ourselves again, because this is what we're doing, and this is where we've succeeded. We're here. And then you get that feeling, like you did when you wanted to move to California or whatever it may be, where you're thinking, well, but wait, I'm doing what I wanted to do, but I'm not satisfied. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to step back in that moment and say, well, where would I be more satisfied right now? Like, I've succeeded thus far, but there's more to take it. I mean, we could be alive for 100 years. I mean, that's a lot of time. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so exactly.
Life's too short to only do something great once.
Yeah, you're so right. That's like such a good statement, because I think we just get so scared. It's like, once we have something good, it's like scared to leave it,
Of course.
And it takes a lot of guts to be able
pride,
to just start over.
It's all your pride is wrapped up in the success, So not that you're like afraid to fail. It's not that kind of pride. It's more of like, well, but who am I? Almost like identity. It's your identity. That's who you are.
Exactly.
So how do you dissect that and move on?
Yeah, definitely. So that's been a whole nother growth season of being like, who am I and what do I want? And that's definitely developed into a new business that we are starting. It's everything that we have learned over the past 2 years, with consulting and working with brands and all the whole realm. It's just wild when you can look back and be like, oh my gosh, like, who would have thought like that would, I was supposed to go through that. I was supposed to walk through that with that boutique and that hardship. And, all the steps are organized, and then you just start seeing everything come together. And I can't fully say what the business is yet, because
come on. I thought I was going to get it. I thought I was going to be the one. I thought it was going to be the big release.
Not yet. We're so close. You'll be the first to know. But okay. So it's just a combination of like all the ordered steps of like everything that we've learned, through owning boutique and through consulting and, through the craziness of the past, 2-3 years. So we're really excited. It's in the same realm of fashion and mentoring and consulting. So we're just really, really excited. It's like always on a new venture, you just have so much dream and vision, but then again, it's just like you just want to be there. Mm-hmm. And so it's been really hard because it's taken a lot longer than we thought it would. We started working on it last September, and we had hoped to launch like in February.
Oh,
And here we
wow.
are. So
Don't
you
rush
know, it's
it,
like yeah,
Can't
that's one
rush
thing
good
too.
things.
Yeah, you have to be patient, and there are things that you have to just like do it right. So we're
Because,
still in that process.
you'll look back and for whatever reason it is, maybe maybe you don't know, but like because I'm actually going through this right now with something, and it's like I want it to happen so bad, and I keep thinking things keep happening, and I look back and I'm like, well, good thing that that business that I wanted to be doing wasn't open, because wouldn't have been able to handle that right now, and so you have to
Mm-hmm.
trust the process and trust the timing, because it's always right. It is,
Yeah.
because yeah.
Yeah, and there are things that you're meant to be learning in that time. Sometimes it's just what you're meant to be learning, like you're not fully there yet. So I feel like I've continued to learn so much leading up to this, that it's just like, okay, we're in this season for a reason. As much as I want to already be launched with this business, it's another like learning of like, okay, just have patience and look at what you have today, and take what you have today and learn from it, so that's kind of the season we're in right now.
So, just one more thing too, going back, I was going to say this a second ago and then we just kept going. But I think what's really great too, and something that you've taught me and that you taught me back when I was working for you, is it's so important to set standards for yourself. And once
Mm.
you can set those standards, whether it's when you're young or when you're older, maybe even like today, like I don't know what my standards are. Like, meaning when I say that, I mean like within what realm, who are you and what standards do you set? Because once you can understand who you are and what you stand for and what you believe in, and I'm not saying you have to do a deep dive into like your soul, but just saying what are some of the things that I won't give up. What are some of the things
Mm-hmm.
that are like non-negotiables for me? And then once you can find that and kind of tune it as you grow and mature and grow your family or grow whatever it may be, but if you have that kind of bubble of standards that you live in, and then sometimes it makes choices easier, because then you're saying, if something comes along and you're like, well, that kind of seems awesome and that kind of seems cool, and then you can automatically think, would it fit within everything else I'm doing? And if it's a huge no, then you're like, okay, that's not for me, And if it's a well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, then you can look into it. And sometimes it's like, this perfectly aligns with me and who I am. We're going to do it. And sometimes having those standards, I feel like, has helped me make decisions when you're like, I don't know, what do I do? And then you can look back and see, does it fit within who I am?
Yeah, it's so true about being intentional and in knowing, what you want even before you get into a situation, like already like pre-thinking these things out of like these standards and boundaries kind of that you need to set for yourself before you're even in a situation, whether that be, in a partner before you get married, or like when you're raising a family. And it can go into so many different realms, but it reminds me of my favorite verse is Matthew 6:21. It says, for where your treasure is, there your heart is also. And it just really makes it just always makes me go back to thinking about like how I'm spending my time, because time is kind of our treasure. Like that's what we have, and it's fleeting and going away every day. And it's so important of being intentional with your time. So always like I look at myself and I say, well, where am I investing so much time, and where do I need to reorganize that? Whether it's like, am I working too much so I don't have time for my friends or my family, and or developing new relationships, or am I too focused on trying to make a certain dollar amount so I can get this or that or achieve that, whatever it is. It's always like going back to like, well, where is my treasure and where am I spending my time, because that is where my treasure is. So I think it's one of those intentionalities of like constantly looking at your life and your time and relationships, and like going back to that core of like, is this what I want for my life?
Yeah, it's so true. It's so
Yeah.
true. I thought you were gonna tell me what you were gonna be doing. I'm so
I'm so sorry.
anxious. It's okay. I'll wait. I'll wait. Well, this was so great. I just love you so much. You are so special, and
Oh,
I just think there's so much. Your story is just inspirational. It's one of those feel goods, because things really have played out for you. You've worked really hard. It's not been easy, but I think that you're just a really, you kind of set a standard and you follow it, and it's great. I think it's just really great, your story.
And I feel so grateful. Just, it's like you look back and you're like, oh, I never saw like owning a boutique would give me like these like incredible relationships for the rest of my life. You never would go into certain things like that. And I think that's really the biggest thing that I've gained is, like your friendship. And, it's just one of those things where, being able to look at what you're taking away from whatever it is that you're pouring your heart into. And so, and our friendship is that, it is my treasure. So I am grateful for you and our friendship.
So grateful. So tell everyone, where can we find you? What's your website?
Okay, it's Catherine Yearwood Styling, and there will be a big announcement. Well, I guess I've changed it, consulting. I'm like so bad about being able to change my brain whenever I get something. But yes, CatherineYearwoodConsulting.com.
Consulting.com. Okay.
Yes, and I love helping people along their journey, whether it's like startups or whether it's just a concept right now. I have, girls that I mentor. We do, Zoom calls, or all sorts of things, like all realms. If you've had a business for 16 years, I am there to be a fresh eyes. Like I do all types of things. So yeah, I love helping.
Well, I cannot wait. So the announcement will be on your website. You can do social too. What's your social media? The same thing, Catherine Yearwood Consulting?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay. And I'll link everyone up.
No.
And, I didn't even tell you. This is a shirt from Hallelu.
Oh, I knew. I saw it and I was like, oh, those were our leopard days. Remember all would like show up.
Yeah.
We had our leopard uniform days.
Right. Queenie, my nickname was Queenie, and Queenie loved her leopard print. But I have this, I wear it all the time, and I get so many compliments. And this shirt has to be over 10 years old, easily.
Oh my gosh.
So
see, lasting fashion. There we go.
Anyways,
I have to pull up some old pictures and
please
blast.
don't.
And blast, yes.
Oh, I love you so much, and thank you. And we will be waiting to hear the big announcement.
All right. Thanks so much.